Welcome to Deep in the Stripes, the sickest Bengals podcast around. I am your host, Elise Jesse, and we are recapping yet another loss in primetime for the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's go.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Deep in the Stripes with Elise Jesse.
From 31 yards, McPherson. And Cincinnati is heading to the Super Bowl. They did it. They beat Mahomes at home. Wow, Joe Burrow. No way.
The sickest Cincinnati Bengals podcast. It's gonna be sick.
The Cincinnati Bengals are now 1-6 in one-score games, and this game was wild. I mean, the lack of consistency is crazy. I'm glad that they did not keep the same consistency in the second half as they had in the first half, because it would have been an absolute blowout. The Cincinnati Bengals in the first half only forced the Chargers to punt one single time, which you cannot do against an all-time talented quarterback like Justin Herbert. You cannot do that. The offense on the other side in the first half generated exactly nothing. So the halftime score was 24-6, which is not what anything the Bengals wanted to see whatsoever. It was just brutal the whole time. Second half looked a lot better. The Chargers had a field goal. Joe Burrow, like a shark, sniffs blood in the water. He responds with a touchdown to Jamar Chase. Then we see a Chargers fumble. Joe Burrow to Chase, another touchdown. Then the defense, and we said this last week, you can expect an average, below average defense to have at least 1 to 2 quarters of decent defensive play where they're getting off the field on third down. You can't expect it all 4 quarters, really, but you can at least 1 or 2 quarters. So finally, the defense shows up in the second half. Cam Taylor-Britt is benched in favor of rookie Josh Newton. And the Cincinnati Bengals force the Chargers into 5 punts. They have a fumble. Joe Burrow responds with multiple touchdowns. They have a chance to win it. And then they had a Hail Mary at the end, which was interesting. I thought the officiating in this game was horrible. First half defense was horrible. First half offense was horrible. But Joe Burrow's numbers, let's look at that for 1 second. Joe Burrow in this game alone, 28 of 50, 356 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a loss to show for it. I think we have a graphic, actually, because this is really kind of crazy if you think about it. Like, this is from John Breach. Look at this. There have been 19 instances this season where a quarterback threw for at least 250 yards and 3 touchdowns with 0 interceptions. Here's what the win-loss record looks like. Look at that. Joe Burrow, 0-3. All other quarterbacks, 14-2. Burrow has more losses than all other quarterbacks combined. He has 0 help. Last night on the podium, he's swaying back and forth. You can tell he's irritated. He's pissed off. He doesn't want to be there. He doesn't want to be answering the same exact questions that he's been answering all season long. And to the reporters' credit, they don't want to be asking the same questions that they've had to ask all season long. They don't. It gets boring. It gets old quickly. And Joe Burrow was asked if this is the most frustrating season for him, and he said yes. And then they tried to get him to elaborate, asked why, and he said it's self-explanatory, and it is. And he said it as well himself. He has very little margin for error. Pretty much 0 margin for error. When you see Jamar Chase open, busted coverage, you've got to make that throw. You've got to see it. That would have been a touchdown to Jamar Chase. He didn't see it, though. I believe he threw the ball to Andre Yoshivas, which was a good play, but it could have been a touchdown. Missed opportunity there. And you have to be, if you're Joe Burrow, you absolutely have to be perfect. And this is why people always say that he is the hardest job in the NFL, because his room for error is this. It's like a pin needle size. Why? Because your kicker can't make the kicks. Your defense is not reliable. Actually, they're more of a liability for the team. He doesn't have time. He's running for his life. He got hit 14 times last night, which is unacceptable. He's now, by my math, this is recorded hits only. He's been hit 78 times so far this season. The guy's like limping off the field at this point. He needs the bye more than anybody. It's crazy. It's crazy out here. I can't even believe that. Now, Chase, of course, had a good game, 7 catches, 75 yards, 2 touchdowns. Higgins, his first game back since the quad injury, 9 catches, 148 yards, 1 touchdown. Chase Brown, I was very impressed with because his all-purpose yards, like, did you see his explosiveness in the second half? That generated, in my opinion, so much momentum. And you remember, was it last game? They all run together at this point because there's so many losses by 1 score. Last game or a game or two ago, he had the fumble and it just took out all of the momentum from this team. And I know Jim Harbaugh said after the game, there's no such thing as momentum. I totally disagree because Chase Brown being able to generate those explosive runs helped the Bengals on the momentum side of things, in my opinion. He had 143 all-purpose yards, 22 carries, 86 yards for the average, 5 catches out of the backfield for 57 yards. It looked good. It did. Now, I got to go to my rant of the game because this is kind of touching on what infuriates me about the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow.
Elise's Rant of the Week.
Rant of the week, you may have expected me to talk about the defense again. But instead, we have to talk about Joe Burrow getting hit. The dude finally has a healthy season. He has been brutalized his whole career in Cincinnati because he hasn't been protected well enough. We haven't seen quality protection for Joe Burrow. He didn't have a pocket. He didn't have any semblance of a pocket last night. Again, running for his life again, scrambling, making throws as he's getting hit. He doesn't even know if his throw, I think he said it last night at one point on the podium, like, I didn't even get to see it because I was trying to get up from the ground. He's not even seeing if his throws are actually making it to the intended receiver because he's laying on his back on the turf. It's a joke. Orlando Brown Jr. injured, didn't play last night. That's disappointing. Coaches can't control that. Trent Brown has been on IR. Coaches can't control that. 2 massive 6'8" bodies that would certainly help protect Joe Burrow, which are not available, unfortunately, for the Cincinnati Bengals. If they lose again, what's the point? What's the point of putting him out there outside of trying to keep butts in the seats at Paycor Stadium? And I said this to Sammy and Yellow I hope I said that right, before we started recording. And I asked them if this made sense because it makes sense to me. And I'm going to tell you the protection that Zac Taylor has, because you guys are constantly in my mentions. You're always saying it. Fire Zac Taylor, fire Zac Taylor. Here's the thing. Y'all did that with Marvin Lewis too, towards the end of his career. You said it, but you also spoke with your hard-earned money. You did not use your money to go to Paul Brown Stadium or Paycor Stadium and watch Andy Dalton throw the ball away. No, who wants to see that? But you're saying fire Zac Taylor, and then you're using your money, which I totally get it. I understand. Watching Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins is magical. This, at the end of the day, football is entertainment. You are going to spend your money to go see them. The Brown family knows that. So if there's butts in the seats, why make a drastic change like firing Zac Taylor? It's not going to happen. Like those wants and those wishes are falling on deaf ears, is what I'm trying to tell you. Now, and I don't fault you for spending your money to watch Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase because they are truly generational talents. And in 15, 20 years down the line, you'll be able to tell your kids, yeah, I watched Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase in person. I saw this specific game. Record-breaking game. Yeah, that's cool. I think. Just know that as long as you're spending your money to go watch Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase this season, at least, there will not be changes. At least I would not expect to see a change. I would be so shocked, floored, if they made a drastic change like firing Zac Taylor. Don't think that's going to happen. I'm just going to put that out there. And I'm not going to toy with you guys. You know how I am. Like, I just like to be blunt. I just like to say how it is. I'm not going to toy with you to try to get you to click in here. Like, oh, is he going to get fired? Is he not? Does she know so? No. Come on, man. It's very cut and dry. Look at the history. The history often repeats itself here, unfortunately. Let's talk about another reason why Joe Burrow, I touched on it earlier, why Joe Burrow has very little margin for error. Evan McPherson. Sammy made me a wonderful graphic, and I got to show you guys. Look at this. Oh, look at those numbers. 2021, he's 84.8%. That's pretty decent. 2022, still in the 80s. 2023, 83.9. He signs this big, massive extension in August of this year, and he drops all the way down to 71.4%. So his accuracy percentage has dropped from 2023 to now, has dropped by 12.5%. Mike Garafolo reported back in August when he signed the deal that Evan McPherson is due $10 million in new money in 2025. But also, if you were on Twitter, find Jay Morrison, because he is so good at the contract breakdown. He's good at the stats, the numbers, all that jazz. And he claims that there is a clause that the Cincinnati Bengals have to where Evan McPherson would have to essentially audition to keep his job next year. He earned the name Money Mac. He was making those big kicks. He was making those game-winning kicks. I don't know what's going on. It's not making sense. We are seeing so much regression in not just one player, but multiple players across the board. And it's not computing. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. Now, Evan McPherson, yes, his inability to kick a field goal has lost the Bengals a game or two. If he would have made both field goals last night, the Bengals still would have lost. Although I think that game, I mean, if you only look at the final score, because obviously the Chargers won by a full touchdown, so the Bengals would have lost by one. But if he would have made those field goals, I think that the Bengals would have been able to play that game a little differently. They could have been more conservative with the ball. They could have just held on to it, run some time off the clock with the 3-point lead. Would have been nice to see. Secure the win, close it out. T. Higgins is begging his teammates to close out games. Jamar Chase is being asked about not being able to finish, and he's like, talk to the coaches. Jamar Chase is so fed up with the same questions over and over. And again, it's the reporters are in a crappy position. Like, they have to ask these questions because the team continues to fail to finish. What are you supposed to do? It's hard to generate brand new ways of asking, why can't you finish a game? Why can't you make the high effort plays necessary to beat good teams on your schedule? They have not beaten good teams. Again, 1-6 in one-score games. Everybody loves to hate the Kansas City Chiefs, but guess what? The Chiefs, 7 of their 9 wins were by one score. Good teams know how to be closers. Good teams know how to win within minutes, when the pressure is high, when the game is on the line, when you need high effort from all of your players. That's what the Chiefs are. People love to hate winners, and I don't know why that is. I mean, I on one hand, I was like, oh, finally the Chiefs lose. But then on the other hand, it's like, gosh, they are such a great franchise. You know who else is a great franchise? Pittsburgh Steelers. They took over first in the AFC North yesterday. Played a great game. Beat the Ravens 18-16, I believe. And the Bengals have to face that team twice. Mike Tomlin, I think I retweeted it. He was talking about Mike Tomlin was addressing his team, and he was talking about how it is an expectation for every single player to get better. Like your mistakes from last year will no longer be looked over or accepted. Like, no, you need to improve and evolve every single year. He was making his expectations so crystal clear that if you are not actively getting better week in and week out, year in, year out, you don't have a place in the Pittsburgh Steelers organization. That brings me to my game ball.
Who gets the game ball?
A player who has not gotten better in 2024. And it pains me to say, because you grow to like certain people, like you like how they conduct themselves, you like how they go about their business, you like how they interact with people, you notice if they have manners or not because you're around the team more often than most. Cam Taylor-Britt. I don't know what's going on, man. Something is off with him. Mike Tomlin would not accept this. And finally, last night, it took 11 games, but Lou Anarumo did not accept it last night. He benches Cam Taylor-Britt in favor of the rookie, Josh Newton, who gets our game ball. Because it was just like crazy, honestly. Let me look at this. First of all, thank you, Geno Stone, for leading the team in total tackles with 9. He leads the team with total tackles. Then it's Jermaine Pratt, Logan Wilson, Mike Hilton, of course, and then Josh Newton, the rookie, coming off the bench. Didn't expect that. Didn't prepare for that. Well, I guess technically he did, but he was not expecting to get called off the bench to play in this game. And he rounds out the top 5, producing 4 total tackles, 3 solo, 2 passes deflected, defensed. He had some of the biggest games of the night last night. He earned recognition last night. He is earning that job. I thought it was interesting last night too. This is just a side note, tidbit type of thing. But if you were watching the TV copy last night, you saw that Jermaine Pratt is in the first half. Jermaine Pratt has been known to be vocal. And I've said this, I don't remember what week it was, but I was talking about the AFC Championship where they lost. And that was the game, technically it was last year, but that was the game where Joseph Osai pushed Patrick Mahomes out of bounds, and they got a roughing the passer penalty, and then it put the Chiefs in field goal position, and they were able to win on a field goal. And Jermaine Pratt was walking off and saying, "Why the bleep would you touch the quarterback?" And then Jermaine Pratt got dragged on social media because of using his colorful language and calling a guy out and being angry about it. And I said, "That's what football is." That's what happens in a very violent, rough sport, is like when when the game's on the line and tensions are high, emotions are high. Those are reactions that you should expect to see. And Jermaine Pratt was highlighted again last night in Cam Taylor-Britt's face saying, "Wake up. Come on." He's tired of it. He's tired of the BS. He's again saying, being vocal, which honestly, I can't remember another time this season where I've seen a lot of that from him. And I know that he's kind of like backed off because of the situation from the AFC wildcard game. But I liked seeing that last night. I liked seeing that passion from him. And I know everybody on social media has been dragging Jermaine Pratt too for his play this season. He's been quieter. But you also have to have a vocal leader on each side of the ball. In each phase of the game, you have to have that vocal leader. And he was that last night. I'd be interested to see if he had any kind of words for the team at halftime. I know they said that Zac Taylor came in and said, "You got to execute better," which, okay, That's expected. But I wonder if Jermaine Pratt had any extra words for the team, because that defense came out looking a lot different in the second half. People are wondering, and they can't figure out why the Cincinnati Bengals have stars like Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Trey Hendrickson, and yet they have a 4-7 record to show for it. I think it's more of an accumulation of decisions by this team that has now led to this point. Like we've seen it in the past. Like you all are like in my mentions saying, I want to talk about a mock draft. Why? For what? It's very spotty whether or not they're going to hit in the draft. And when they do, sometimes those guys don't even get second contracts. Like Jesse Bates, for example. The best defense in the Joe Burrow era was 2022, and that team had Jesse Bates on it, and that team had DJ Reader on it as well. They let him walk. And look at him now. I don't think Lou Anarumo wanted that, but they didn't get a deal done with them. Still haven't gotten a deal done with their star wide receiver, Jamar Chase. There's no deal on the table for T. Higgins, as far as I know. Do you remember back in the day, and I can't believe that this was so long ago, it was 2016, 17, but it feels like yesterday when they had that incredible offensive line for Andy Dalton. And then they let Andrew Whitworth walk. And then they let Kevin Zeitler walk right over to Cleveland. Kevin Zeitler, that was 8 seasons ago that happened. Kevin Zeitler currently ranks as one of the top 3 guards in the NFL if you pay attention to PFF rankings. He's killing it in Detroit right now. The Bengals could use some of that. Homegrown dude, you let him walk. Jesse Bates, homegrown dude, you let him walk. Joe Mixon, homegrown dude. He got multiple contracts, but you still let him walk this offseason. And you also let ball security walk out the door with it, as we've seen and experienced, unfortunately, which has also led to multiple losses on the year. I'm not excited to talk about drafting because you don't know whether or not that draft's going to pan out, because the Cincinnati Bengals has this big of a scouting department. We've already addressed that last week. We addressed that. Compared to every other team in the NFL, at least in the AFC North, they do not compare. They are not on the same level. They are not in the same stratosphere as far as the ability to, and the manpower to scout the talent needed to be a playoff caliber team. Say it to I'm blue in the face. You guys are probably tired of me hearing it, but it's the truth. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase cannot win by themselves. They need help somewhere. Definitely on the defensive side of the ball. The 4-7 record points at the defense because Joe Burrow's playing out of his mind, and so is Jamar Chase. T. Higgins playing great when he's healthy. Very disappointing. Extremely disappointing, honestly. And I've seen a lot of people talk about whether or not Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase's careers are being wasted. This year's definitely a waste. And I think that it's additionally frustrating because of the fact that Joe Burrow is healthy, had a healthy training camp, had a healthy year. Now he's limping, unfortunately, limping around, trying to get his body right after being hit a million times. But you had a healthy Joe Burrow. And when Joe Burrow is healthy, you see the numbers that he puts up. He's passed for over 3,000 yards this season. He's better than most quarterbacks you'd see in the NFL. Any team would kill to have Joe Burrow on their team. Are you kidding me? Along with Jamar Chase. I don't think Jamar Chase would leave Joe Burrow, but I think that Jamar Chase should certainly enjoy the NFL courtship. Why not? If anything, for respect at the end of the day. I'm not seeing a whole lot of respect as far as numbers go being thrown Jamar Chase's way from the Cincinnati Bengals, unfortunately. At least right now. Maybe things will change in the offseason. They don't really like to do deals during the season, so we'll see. Let me know. Do you guys think that Joe Burrow's career is being wasted? And what do you think the Bengals should do to fix it? I'm interested to hear what you have to say. As always, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to my rant. The whole thing is like a rant this whole season, unfortunately. Our first year of this podcast, and it's just me coming on here ranting back and forth with you guys. I mean, I kind of love it because you guys are great, but man, I wish I could talk about more wins. That would just be so much more fun. Also, before we go, Ian Rappaport says that cornerback DJ Turner might have a fractured clavicle, and he is getting a second opinion. So it's another blow to this defense. I mean, the injuries are a major factor. I'll leave you with that. And just because the Bengals are on a bye doesn't mean that we are. We will be back later this week, and we're going to just talk about the AFC North picture. We're going to talk about the situation that the Cincinnati Bengals are in. Can they win the remaining 6 games on their schedule? What must they do to get into the playoffs? Is that even a possibility? We're going to break it all down because we like to do things like that. And I feel like you guys like to listen to that stuff. So why not? Let's do it. Let's do another episode this week. I will see you for that episode. We'll talk about the AFC North. If there's anything else that you guys want to talk about in that next episode or you guys want to hear about, let me know in the comments, and I will do my best to address it. For now, Cincinnati Bengals licking their wounds, and so are we. I'll see you later.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Deep in the Stripes with Elise Jesse on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.